Welcome to Spaces Between. This is a podcast about bringing gamers closer together. Today I have a special guest, John Purkis from Actualol. What's going on, man?
Hey, thanks for having me on, Roy. Good to see you.
Thanks so much for coming on. I really enjoy a lot of your content that you have on Actualol and just seeing you all over the place. And I thought it'd be fun you hit me up about asking me questions about tech stuff. And I'm like, hey, John, come on my podcast. It'll be fun.
Yeah, no, I was well up for it. Yeah, I actually don't think I've ever been on the Dice Tower, so I jumped at the opportunity, so here we are.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, it's just like this little channel. I don't know many people have heard about it, but yeah, the Dice Tower is fun. We talk about board games and things like that.
Yeah, I've heard of it here and there, yeah.
Nice.
I tend to watch most videos.
I know you've met like Tom and them at is it like the UK, or do you normally do Essen and stuff like that too?
Yeah, I've met Tom a bunch of times, and Z and Sam at UKGE, but also at Essen probably for the last 3 years, yeah.
That's cool, yeah, and I just see them at the office every day, and they're whatever. But
and they're not a celebrity to you anymore. Like they're just.
I'm just like
colleague.
no. I'm like, hey guys, get in here. We need to record this live thing now. No, we need the thumbnail. Did you get the thumbnail? Let's put it in. Let's go. No, it's fun. It's fun. Awesome, man. Well, yeah, I guess this is just going to be for us to get to know more about you and about your board game media and like what you like in games. Just, hey, what's up with John Purkis? What do people want to know about him? So you've got your channel Actual. Like, what was the inspiration about starting that, you know?
I guess a few things kind of collided at once, but I was working in TV at the time, and I was trying to work in TV. I was sort of getting jobs here and there, and it wasn't really like a regular thing. And I wanted something where I could sort of put my creativity in and actually always have an audience and get that feedback and stuff. And so I've been looking at YouTube for a while, but I never really was that sure that I'd be good on camera or that I would like that kind of thing. And then, of course, I love board games. And so it just was like, well, board games was the only thing that I was like, yeah, I'll make some videos about that. I think that's going to work. And I was watching the Dice Tower like all the time, Shut Up and Sit Down, and probably like a few others that were around at that time, which was like 4 years ago now.
Yeah, for sure.
And I tried it once and it went okay. And then I sort of tried it again, and every time it got like a little bit easier, and there was things that I could improve, and yeah, it just went from there.
You just kept adding more and more characters in, and
right, yeah, because that was the thing, was that I felt like I could bring something slightly different because I was coming from a comedy writing background, so I was like throwing in jokes and making these characters, and I didn't really see myself as an actor, but nobody else was going to do it, so I just. I was like, well, okay, and the wigs just kind of helped make it a bit more silly and a bit less like proper acting. So it kind of actually helps if you can't really act. Then just put a wig on, and then it kind of, at least you're selling it a little bit visually.
There you go. And when you do like your budget and stuff, you can pay each one of your characters individually, and that helps out with some different budgeting things, right?
I never thought of that. Okay, yeah, I like it. Yeah.
That's awesome. But yeah, so you have like a background in like TV comedy writing, or that's just something you've like worked on trying to get into more? Yeah,
I have a background in it. Yeah. Going back like 10 years ago or so, I've written some things for the BBC and Channel 4 here in the UK, and also for Cartoon Network and Comedy Central UK. So just it was all kind of small stuff, but yeah, that was my career for, I don't know, like 5 years or so. And it was fun, and it was exactly what I wanted. It was like my dream, but there just wasn't enough money. So, so I kind of searched out for other things that I could do as well. And originally I actually started Actualol as kind of like, I had this naive idea that I could somehow do it on the side. But if you talk to any YouTubers, you would realize that as soon as you kind of start doing something like this, it just consumes your life, and you're doing it like you're thinking about it all the time at evenings and weekends. And so like probably at the start I was still doing some TV writing, and in fact I probably was for like the first year or so, but then that kind of just like slowed down because I wasn't able to put as much time into it because I was just obsessed with YouTube, and now it's like my whole life, and it I was like, here I am on a Sunday and I was working earlier today, so yeah.
It's crazy, like the amount of like time and effort like it takes, because like YouTube, I mean, there's a lot of people on YouTube, and there's a lot of people out there trying to do like the whole board game media thing too. Right, so it's like hard to find like your niche and like the right thing and your right audience, and to be able to be supported by something like that is actually really super cool. Yeah.
Well, that's the like the long-term dream, but
for real.
But it just kind of like it's this kind of incredible ride that you go on, and you sort of feel like you can't get off, and it's amazing fun, but it just kind of you get swept up in it.
Yeah, it's interesting because we feel it at the Dice Tower. It's like, gotta keep putting out the content, make stuff, make new things, try to figure out new ways to innovate and like make things that people will like. I know there's like tons of YouTubers out there that like complain about, oh, I did this, and it's like you have this grind that you have to stay on because you want the fans to be entertained and excited about your stuff, but you also don't want people to fall off. And I know a lot of YouTubers out there suffer with like burnout and things like that. But yeah, I think it's fun like trying to think up new things, and I'm sure as a comedy writer, like that's probably like your forte is like being creative, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I love coming up with the ideas for all of this stuff, and often it's the kind of all the production side of it that is like that. I've had so many ideas for like probably going back like years now, where you just never quite get round to being able to do it because there's always something first. Like at the moment I'm working on my big Essen video.
Nice.
And so every October it's like the Essen video, so anything else that you want to be doing kind of gets kicked aside. I've always just got like a million things that I would love to be doing floating around in the head, but I'm sure I'll get to them eventually.
I know some of the stuff that's really fun that you've done are like the different like songs and musical type stuff. Especially when you get other people to join in. That's been pretty awesome. They were loads of fun. They sort of came out of slightly random places, where the first one I was just watching. I'm always watching loads of different YouTube videos, and I'd got hooked on that the Nations of the World, this song from the Animaniacs, which is what my first song was based on. And so I was just as a sort of challenge, I would start like singing the Countries of the World one, the original. And I was like, well, I can kind of do this, but it would take a long time to remember it. And I would just like sing along to the YouTube video, and they'd put like the lyrics on or whatever. And then I was like, well, this could really work for board games. And I did it kind of mathematically. I like made a list of all my board games, and then I counted out all the syllables of them. Make sure it had a good cadence for the whole thing.
Right. And so like I was like matching it up to the countries in the original song. So it was this weird puzzle. Like it became a real like challenge of trying to fit it in. And then sort of once I'd done that, I think it took me a while to then sort of get around to actually recording it and doing the vocals, because that was like a whole thing. I had to find the music for it. And that was impossible. But it was kind of a big hit. And then filming it on the day, I got my now wife to like help me, and we basically emptied the boxes of every single game in the video. So there was like 130 games in that video. So our living room was just full of board game components and empty boxes. And then
were you able to find them and put them all back in the right place, or were you still like pulling out like, this doesn't go here?
I kind of did. There was definitely like a bit. I think some things went under the sofa, and there was definitely some bits like that didn't find their home for ages. And there was one set of cubes that I just had no idea what they were. And then it wasn't until years later that I realized what they were, and they were just like in a drawer. But it was fine. I guess I never played that game.
It might be time to cull this one out of the collection if I didn't care for this long.
Yeah, right. So that was Ristorante Italia, that game. But I have since sold it. So, but
there you go.
Yeah, it was crazy because I had my wife like passing me the games on one side of the table, so I was like sat behind the table in front of the camera, and she was like throwing me the games, and we were filming it like at half speed, and then we sped it up later. And so I was just like desperately trying to get the board game boxes across the table in time with the music. And then they were just falling on the other side because I didn't have like another person to help me.
Were you having to like lip sync at the same time as this?
Yeah.
Holy smokes.
But we did it in like sections of like 10 games or so. So yeah, we would just do that one bit because otherwise we would have like, it would have just not been possible. So we had just these stack of games, and some of them got like the boxes got kind of damaged, but that was just kind of, I just went with it. And,
was it worth it? I
think it was worth it. Yeah. It was kind of one of those first videos of mine where like people remember it, and people might occasionally go back and watch it, and it's weird, but it's just something to be proud of. And so then that inspired obviously wanting to do other ones, and yeah, and it kind of all went from there.
That's awesome. So as far as board games go, is there a certain like style of games or like certain games that you enjoy the most? I know you have like lots of top 10 videos and things like that where you talk about those sort of things, but what would you say are your style of games?
I think it varies a little bit, but I'm definitely not like a classic omni gamer like Tom Vassell, for example. Like he loves everything, and I don't really love everything. But the categories that I guess I would like say that are mine are any kind of like gateway or family or however you want to describe that, the kind of lighter side of things, but still kind of games. So like I'm just looking, I've got my shelves here. So like Ticket to Ride, Stockpile, Pandemic, things like that. Then I love party games. I've covered loads of party games. I think like if you're having that much fun, if you're laughing that much, then like why isn't that in like your top 100 games kind of thing? Like
for sure.
I don't devalue it just because it's got simpler rules or anything. Then there's definitely like if moving in towards heavier stuff, definitely like I really love like narrative games. I guess that's partly comes from like my writing side, so I tend to be really critical of them. So there's loads of storytelling games that I don't like, but the ones I do like, I really love. And then the kind of I guess what you would describe epic games, but they're probably not as epic as you like. But things like Dead of Winter, Game of Thrones, Battlestar Galactica, and again, like I'm really picky about it. So if I play an epic game and there's just a few things I don't like about it, I'm never playing it again because it lasts like 4 or 5 hours.
Oh yeah, for sure.
The ones that I love, I really love, and they're like my favorite. So like so Battlestar Galactica, Spartacus, Dead of Winter, and I tend to like games. I like games with a lot of interaction. I don't tend to like games with no interaction. Like I'm not. So the things that I'm not so into are like the heavy Euro games. And I do play games without interaction. I guess things like Roll and Rights tend to not have it, but it tends to be the shorter side of things.
Right.
So, yeah, I think that kind of covers it.
I like that because, like, a lot of your stuff is, like, even the party games and all that stuff is very much, like, it's cool when you get to play those games because, I mean, one of the reasons I play games is to help build relationships around the table. And the games where you're actually interacting face-to-face, like, oh my goodness, you're a traitor. Oh my goodness, I can't believe you wrote that word on that card for this party game, whatever. It makes those memorable, silly moments, you know, and that's one of the things that I love in board games as well. Yeah,
exactly. I think it does come down to memorable stuff. And like the best party games, you remember specific like evenings, and the best epic games, like I remember all my Game of Thrones games, and I remember all my Battlestar Galactica games because they tell that story. And
have you ever had like those epic moments of like betrayal and backstabbing that it's like, oh my goodness, this is never going to be forgotten?
Oh yeah, of course, and times where it got like a little bit a bit too intense. Like I haven't had it too bad in terms of, you know, you talk about something like Game of Thrones and like, oh, you lose friends over it. I haven't really had that. But I've had it once or twice where I've just felt like the energy in the room is a little bit too severe and a little bit like nobody's really friends right now. They'll be friends later or tomorrow. But I tend to like it if we take it a bit less seriously than that, but still with the backstabbing. Just as long as everyone, you know, you're going in knowing it's going to happen, right? So like, but I think Battlestar Galactica is kind of better for that. You can't really get upset so much because it's their job to be lying to you.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
And I think the best thing in that is obviously if just someone does a really good job, and then like by the end of it, you're like, wow, like I can't believe it. And yeah, those are like the best. I wish I'd had more of that. I often find like you play with a group and just like one of the Cylons they're just like the worst person that could have been picked to be the Cylon because they just can't bluff. And that's a shame. Or like the last time I played it we had that thing where both the Cylon cards got given to the same player. And I know that there's like a way to solve that, but the guy had never played the game before. And so he didn't really get it.
And so it's like no one there wants to help the dude figure it out. Because no, we're trying to survive.
And so I think, I can't remember, but he kind of made a mistake in how he was supposed to resolve it. And so it became clear that he was the one. And that was a real shame, but it was fun up until that point anyway.
Yeah, I've had a game of Battlestar where it's like we figured out one Cylon real early, and then like later on, it's like we need to jump the ship now. I can't get there because I'm over here, but if I can executive order you could go over there and hit the FTL drive. We're gonna get away from everything. And he's like, yeah, let's do this. And you executive order him. And he's like, and I'll take that action instead of hitting the FTL drive. I'm gonna reveal myself as a Cylon.
Yeah,
just like
that's the dream, isn't it? Yeah, that's amazing.
And it's things like that in games that, like, I don't know. I love the stories that can come out of board games with certain groups of people. And I feel like it strengthens the relationships between those people,
Oh, yeah, for sure, yeah.
And it's cool with all the party games and gateway games. It's just a great way to get people into it,
Yeah, I mean, is that, like, I guess I tend to play games. I like to play with a broad mix of people, like, I do have a lot of gaming friends, but then often actually my gaming friends do just like the lighter games as well. I think I also just love variety, so I like to not necessarily focus on one thing for the whole night. And for me, I guess it's the experience, sometimes the theme, and that interaction, and I don't necessarily need for it to last. I suppose like the longer games, that I don't love are the games that are just really thinky, and if I want to do well at this game or even really compete, then I've got to kind of switch off. I'm not, it's not like I was just about to say I'm not as clever as the other people at the table, but I think it's more specific. I don't have the kind of brain for those types of games. And so if I want to compete, I have to kind of like step away and I don't get to kind of converse as much and things.
Right,
so I just don't tend to play them for that. But it's also because they're not telling the story and because I won't really remember that experience because either the theme isn't coming through or there isn't that interaction with like betrayal or whatever it might be. So yeah,
I think for me, I wouldn't say I've gotten flack, but I always say like I don't want to walk away from a game and the only thing I remember is like Bob got 30 points and Sally got 32 and I got 23 points or whatever. Like if that's the only thing I can say about a game at the end of it, it's kind of like, what are we doing here, guys? Like, at least give me a chance to do something cool. I mean, I like the whole mechanisms. I can normally do decently good at those games. It's just, at the end of the day, the only thing you can really do is pull up your stats app and type it in there. So many people out there are like, stop talking about me like this. But I think it's good stuff. I think that there's room out there for all sorts of different gamers with all sorts of different variety of games. And I feel like there's games that, I mean, even if you don't like the Euro games and this other person does like the Euro games, there's probably a party game or a casual game or some other game in the mix in the middle that everybody can enjoy playing. Yeah,
and I think, like, hopefully it sets my channel apart a little bit. Like, I mean, everyone has kind of different niches, and I watch a lot of YouTube videos, so I can kind of, if somebody was to ask me what type of games does this person like, I would probably be able to tell you. But
for sure.
I think... But I think, just kind of being able to tap into like a slightly different avenue, and it's definitely covered by other channels, but I'm just kind of quite focused on that. It just means I've kind of built up an audience that like that kind of thing that maybe they don't feel as catered for on other channels.
Are there any like party or like gateway games that you're really digging on or that you would recommend to people if they haven't checked them out yet?
Ooh, that's a good question. I'm only really thinking about the ones. I tend to be so focused on the videos that I'm making. But recently, ones that I have actually talked about on my channel, party games. I was really surprised by a game called 20 Second Showdown. which I remember Tom really liked as well, where you're playing on 2 teams and you're just doing like these ridiculous challenges.
Gotcha.
So it would just be like silly things like having to like hold a quick marriage ceremony for 2 people on your team, or like take off your sock and like make it into a sock puppet, and just like it's like silly, but it's not like annoyingly like none of it. You know, there are some like adult party games. It's not an adult party game. This is like a family friendly thing. You know, some adult party games are trying to make you do like stuff that's a bit cringe, or just
for sure.
It's going to make people feel uncomfortable, but it's not doing that at all. But the thing is you're trying to do it as fast as possible, because there's this massive sand timer that as soon as you're done, it'll flip over for the other team. So you're trying to give the other team as little time as possible. And then obviously it's just back and forth. And the first team that can't complete the challenge before the timer runs out, like, loses it. So you actually have one person that just plays as like the games master, reading out the challenges. So that one, it's kind of not my usual vibe, because it is just it's almost like a traditional party game. It doesn't have that kind of extra cool, like modern party game twist like Codenames, right?
Right.
But it's just really good. And then other gateway stuff, I'm trying to have a look around to see if I can
just played Just One for the first time the other night.
Oh wow, yeah.
I know that one's, huge. It won the Spiel des Jahres, but I really
for the
really
first
enjoyed
time the other day, Roy, you got to.
I know. I knew what the game was. I'd heard a million people talk about it on podcasts, and a million people talk about it all over the place. And I never had bought a copy. I was like, I'll play Just One someday. I know how it works. So literally, my friend came over with his wife, and he set the game up, and he was like, who's going to teach? I'm like, I've never played the game, but I can teach it. So, because I've just heard people talk about it so much. It's such a simple game and such a cool little concept of a cooperative game, you know?
Awesome. Yeah, and I just thought of a gateway game type, which is Deep Blue. I'm really loving Deep Blue, the diving game. I know it hasn't gone down brilliantly with everyone, but honestly, this might be one of my favorite games of the year. I love push your luck games generally, but for me, this is one of the best push your luck games, because I love the way that everyone's involved and that you're doing it together, and somebody kind of is pushing luck for you and them at the same time. So you're kind of begging them to stop, or you want them to carry on, but they're being too safe about it. Or you can kind of take them diving, knowing that they don't have the protection, these cards that are going to stop them from going bust. And so you just keep drawing and drawing, forcing them to go bust. Or maybe they got the gems that they really wanted. They're going to make big points, but then you just keep going. You kind of almost sacrifice your own points just to kind of stop them from getting those. I think it does some really different stuff to other push your luck games. And I'm really loving that one.
And I'm sure with Days of Wonder, that means that it looks great too. So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's a big one at Essen for me.
Nice. Awesome. So you're going to be hitting up Essen here soon?
I'm not, actually. Unfortunately,
I'm in the same boat. So.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I've been for the last 3 years, and it's awesome, but it's expensive, and I just can't afford to go this year. So I'm still making like I said, a big Essen video. I did one last year where I was lucky to get a bunch of games ahead of time, like Treasure Island and Railroad Inc. and things. Some really big games for Essen last year, and I played them and reviewed them and put them all in a top 10 hottest games thing, and that did well. So I'm doing it again this year, and I've got Deep Blue, and I've got Pret-a-Porter and a few other big ones to talk about.
That's awesome. So good stuff. So do you have any interesting videos on the horizon you'd want to talk about, or people should be on the lookout for here coming up?
Well, really, yeah, just the hottest games at Essen. That is it's going to be 10 games that I've played. I've played more than 10 games. They didn't all make the cut, and it's going to be kind of a brief overview, maybe a minute or 2 minutes on each game. So it really just kind of tells you what it's about and why you might be interested in it. And it also gives a good spectrum of games. So there's there's family games, there's heavier games, there's kind of thinky strategy games, there's a party game in there. There's just like a real mix, but I think like 10 of like the best games that are at Essen. So that's going to be coming out probably next week, maybe the start of the week after. It really just depends how quickly I do that. So that's the next big one. And then I'm also going to be building up towards doing like a pledge drive. I have a Patreon to help me run the channel. That's kind of my next goal, to try and like revamp that and give people a reason to support the channel, and because I really want to try and consolidate it as like my full-time job, so I can keep making videos, but also ideally kind of grow and be able to work with other people, things like that.
Yeah, it's definitely awesome. Like, it's crazy, like, how niche and how small a board gaming is, and how much it's just been growing and growing. And I'm excited, like, that it's been able to support more and more, like, awesome board game media people out there. There's so many great channels and so many amazing content creators. So it's like, oh man, when I first decided to like start doing this podcast, I was like, hey, I want to interview some Dice Tower people here and there. And Tom was like, cool, but also get everybody, like get people that aren't just Dice Tower, get other board game media people. So hey, I'm glad to have John on. So it's cool because there's so many people doing so many different cool things out there. And there's of course some people that don't stand apart as much as others, but it's really cool to see all the stuff. I consume a ton of board game media.
Me too.
And it got me big into the hobby. I mean, you're not going to Essen, I'm not going to Essen. It's one of those things like, I have to budget and figure out what games are actually good enough for me to get. So I watch a lot of these reviews and videos to figure out what's going on. And I love that service for the community that all these board game media channels do.
Yeah, it's funny. I've sort of, like, I tend to just watch stuff now. Almost it becomes like sometimes just like a safe, like, it's kind of like I don't know, I was going to say like a warm blanket or something. Like sometimes I'll watch, I'll watch a Dice Tower top 10 and I know every game that they're talking about, and I've played most of them, or I've decided like I'm not interested in them like years ago. So it's not about like learning about new stuff for me anymore. It just becomes like nice to watch.
You're like, I just want to watch these guys fight with each other about these games.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So there's that, and then I tend to gravitate towards the channels that are doing things early. So like if Tom is reviewing a game that I haven't heard about, then that's great, because then I can see if I want to look into it for myself. And it's the same with Rado. He tends to get to things really early. So like the ones like that are really useful. And then it's just nice to sometimes it's just nice to kind of like hear people talk about games you love. Because I think everyone has that a little bit when you get into the hobby and you want to be playing games all the time, but you just can't get the group together, or you're at work, or you just, it's tricky. Whatever your life might be, it's really tricky. And so you just start watching videos as kind of a way to keep the hobby going in your head, but without being able to actually play the games. And I love to do that. Weirdly, I probably love to do that. I don't solo game. I could be solo gaming, but I'd rather maybe be watching videos.
I guess in the same way, it's kind of funny. Like I saw like a thing that was like percentage of amount of time people spend like watching videos and talking about board games. It's like huge. And there's like the percentage of time the community actually spends playing board games. It's like this tiny little amount. Everybody's watching and talking and stuff about it. But yeah, I'm right with you. I'd like to like learn about the more games and like be like, oh, what's hot, and oh man, that looks cool, and is this something that could find a space in my collection? Things are so weird for my collection right now, just because like,
oh really,
like since I moved down here, I technically have access to the Dice Tower library, which is basically Tom's collection exploded to become at all these different events that we're going to be running. So it's like I could technically get almost any game and take it out of the library and play it at like game night or something like that. But so now it's like if something actually makes it into my collection, I only have like 3 shelves of games now, where I used to have tons and tons. So it's like if it makes it into my collection, it has to be like something really special.
Right. Maybe like a few a year, or not even.
I don't know. And I mean, majority of the stuff that it's kind of like at the Dice Tower will do like the review of the game, and like sometimes it'll go into the library, or sometimes we'll have like extra copy, and Tom will be like, okay, these games here, if somebody wants to take them home, they can. And I mean, back in the day, if there were board games, I would be like, give me all the board games.
Yeah,
but now
yeah,
I'm just
yeah.
like, I mean, I don't know. It's not really one of the games I need here or there. And then we end up moving it through and doing different things with it. But
I found the more like, I've been doing this 4 years, and the more games I review, it becomes this new challenge of you rate them by a new criteria now. Because my collection is basically at the size that I want it to be.
Right.
I don't really want to grow anymore, but I'm getting new games in to review them, and of course some of them I want to keep. So I am quite ruthless. I do get rid of older games, but there are games that I think are great, but they're just not quite right for me, and they just have to like kind of be passed on. And that's a weird one that you kind of have to get used to. But I suppose it helps that because I've got them coming in, I never have to be too sad, right? That I'm getting rid of one, because there'll be something new to replace it. And I don't think there's a single game that I've ever got rid of that I regret, that I miss or anything. But I think that's just because I'm playing new games so often that I barely even think about the older games sometimes, which is a shame. But so it'll sometimes just be like my birthday or something is the only time I play like the games I really love.
It's like, I feel like I'm lucky too, because the guys are always like, they always have to be playing the next new thing. Like, this game came out, it's hot, we're playing on Testing Tuesday, we're playing this one at this game night, or playing this one. And just like, I'll go to like a convention and be like, I'm just gonna play this old game that I really like. I'm gonna bring back out Battlelore, or bring back out this other game that I really enjoy that like nobody cares about or is talking about anymore, but I'm playing it just for fun, So,
nice.
But then I just have to edit all those other videos, so it's all good.
right. Fair enough.
But yeah, it's crazy how many games are coming out. Like, how many games are coming out at Essen this year? I mean, it's in the thousands, right? So it's insane. You can't even play all the good games that are out there now. As a consumer, I think it's great, as someone like that enjoys board games, or someone that even reviews board games, like tons and tons of board games is amazing. And it gives you a purpose, I guess, because, I mean, Tom Vassell can't review all the games. Maybe John Perkins will get to review some that other people haven't seen or heard about, and it helps the community. But it's just interesting, like, how much everything is blown up and exploded.
I feel like I wish there was... I don't wish there was less... per se, but I do think that I sometimes am amazed by, like, you've got these bigger companies and they'll release a game and it almost just gets like forgotten about, like it gets kind of swept by. And I feel like that sometimes it would make more sense for them to focus on a specific title and really market it and like push it out. Maybe delay the release of it, kind of in the way that, Jamie Stegmaier has it down so well, right? He kind of really hypes up a game for a long time before, and he puts like everything into it, and it creates this huge wave of hype. And I don't think, it's not always down to whether the game is, how good the game is. But I think it's to do the look of it and the theme, obviously, but I think it's how many people are talking about it. And I just think there have been games. I don't know of like a good example recently, but a game that I love is New Angeles from Fantasy Flight, and that is a really good negotiation game that wasn't talked about a lot, and I don't really know why. I think a lot of reviewers maybe are a bit scared of it because it was kind of a longer game, or maybe they just like didn't really notice it, but. Here's a game with, like, at the time was their Android universe, and Netrunner was still alive, and it felt like a really something they could have really got around. But I can't remember exactly when in the year it was released, but it just got forgotten about so quickly, and there were so many other things around it, and I think it just died. And then you see like companies that are releasing kind of a fair few like mediocre game after mediocre game, and maybe if they just spent a bit more time on one of those, developed it better, or maybe improved the art or the graphic design, or just marketed it better, because like I say, there are definitely like really good games out there that just I feel like they get lost, and it's not okay. Sure, the smaller companies they are going to get lost because maybe they don't have the money to compete. But when a good game at a big company is getting lost, well, that's just confusing. And I feel like there's something to be improved there, but I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. And it's interesting because you have those companies like Jamie who like work and make the one game big, but then you have like those other companies that are just, it feels like they're throwing the spaghetti of board games up against the wall, hoping that one of them sticks. It's like, well, all this undercooked spaghetti is not sticking to the wall. It's like maybe maybe throw less spaghetti and cook it longer, you know?
Right. That blows my mind, that because it's so much hard work to make a board game. Like, I suppose if they're buying designs off of designers so that work is already done, but just the development and like trying to get the artwork and do all the graphic design and then the printing, it's such an ordeal. And like, I've only been involved in it a little bit, but I know like a small part of how much hard work that is. And I sort of find that amazing that companies are willing to do it so many times for so many little games. They have to, like you've got a new game, so you have to think about the theme, and then you've got to find the right artist, and then you've got to workshop with them about how it's going to look the nicest way, and then you've got to pick all the different card sizes and like tokens, and it just like
I wonder how much of it is the fact that like consumers are like burning through, like they're on to the next new thing so fast that maybe many of these publishers are concerned that even if they do spend their time on the one big game and it doesn't do as well as they were hoping for, then it'll be forgotten. At least if they shotgun a bunch out there, then like, hey, we'll be able to like sell some copies of everything and we'll be able to keep ourselves afloat. It's kind of interesting. I'm sure it is great for us who love and consume board games because there's so many amazing games. But like for the publishers, it's like they're trying to find a place in the market and trying to figure out how to get people to actually looking at their games. And then for the designers, it's even worse because then it's just like, I have to design a game that people are actually going to like talk about and think about, and actually it'll be good enough and it'll set itself apart in the market enough that people actually buy it. And there's so many people wanting to do those things, I don't know.
Yeah, I find it really interesting on Kickstarter that there's almost like a different paradigm sometimes in terms of like companies don't like some companies in my mind seem to be successful not for making good games on Kickstarter, but just for being really reliable. The artwork's top notch, the production quality is amazing, and they always meet their deadlines, and they do great customer service, and like they keep you updated, right? And that they can build just like a huge customer base, but like the games never break through. Like they're not the kind of like things that would ever win awards or kind of cross over in the way like I know something like Pandemic has, that it would sell loads and loads of copies, but that becomes a business model to just make a sort of 6 out of 10 game, but make it in a kind of very classy way, and then just do it again and do it again. And those backers are so loyal. They were like, well, last time they did everything right, and I like the look of this one, so sure, I'll just go for it again. And
if I don't get it now, I'm not going to get the exclusives, so I better get on board or I'm going to be missing out.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, man. Yeah, Kickstarter is interesting, too, because like it has a little bit of the same problem. It's like I wouldn't want to be a person trying to be up and coming on Kickstarter now. It's like as a game designer, you almost want to try to figure out a way to tie yourself to a publisher that just publishes through Kickstarters, because it's like, hey, they have the audience. It's like if you're, it can still happen. There's still plenty of Kickstarters that go from nothing to being good, but it's majority of the time it's just the same tried and true companies, right?
Yeah, and I see companies and they run their first Kickstarter and it maybe doesn't succeed, so they cancel it. And then they go again, and it just about creeps over the second time. Yeah. But in that time, like, they haven't necessarily made like a huge financial total, but they've already had to buy like amazing artwork to stand out. And then often they've paid for like Kickstarter previews or like rules videos or whatever, or playthroughs, whatever it is, because they're the first timers. So it's like almost like they invest everything up front to hopefully get it back. So, and I imagine, there's probably like, there's probably Jamie Stegmaier has a rule about this, but, I imagine you're just planning to make a loss on that first one, right? But so that you build up the reputation to come back with the second and the third one. But yeah, you're right. I feel like
it's like
if I
God
was a
forbid you
designer, I
get
would go
paired
to a
up with the
publisher.
wrong Kickstarter, you know? If you're at the same time as someone else, like
Oh,
you're
yeah.
just going to be like, okay, well, everybody spent their money on that one, so they don't have time for yours because they don't know who you are, you know? It's interesting,
Yeah.
like the whole dynamic, because Kickstarter's become such a huge part of the industry.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. And I remember the time when you could kind of just release a game with like mediocre artwork and you were just a guy on your own, but it had a good idea and you made the Kickstarter page look quite nice and it would fun. But now like you've got no chance. Yeah. And you've got to have built some hype and yeah, it just grows. And I guess there was like a sweet time to get into it, just like there is with YouTubing, and now it's like very saturated.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
I really feel for anyone trying to break through. I mean, I'm still, I guess, trying to break through myself. It's all different levels, isn't it? But yeah, boy, it's hard. Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome and interesting, like the way everything's shaken out. I mean, I feel like as a consumer overall, like if you're out there listening and you like board games, there are board games to be had. You know?
Yeah.
And there's definitely,
yeah.
I mean, you can't play all the good games out there. You can't even play all the great games. There's so many awesome games for people to play.
Yeah.
It's interesting to see how people set themselves apart.
I think as a reviewer, like when you're playing loads of stuff, you always get excited about like the new, the games that do something different.
Right.
And so one of the games that has like got me excited lately is King's Dilemma. Because just because of the way it tells a story, it's my kind of epic game. The story is well written, but you really kind of feel like you're in it, and that you know, Dead of Winter was always really impressive with the Crossroads card.
Right.
Like that system, I was like, wow, this is awesome. And I really wanted other companies to come in and kind of borrow that. And I guess maybe everyone was scared because it's, you know, it's kind of like stealing an idea, but maybe they could have worked with him. I don't know. But that Crossroads system just was so innovative, and it just gave you a little taste of story in and around another game, but also these really important decisions.
Right.
And King's Dilemma is actually kind of doing something similar, but it's even more at the heart of the game, where there's literally kind of nothing else going on. You're just making those decisions, but you're voting on them. And yeah, I really love that game, and I would love to see it be made with other themes, just like completely redo it, but come at it from a different angle. I imagine it took a lot of work to get to that point. But at the same time, it's got this really, just interesting way that it's just quite light. Like I could teach that to someone in no time at all. And when you're playing it, you're not having to check the rule book. You're not having to like do anything really. You're just like, you read a card, you vote, and then and you read the outcome, then you read a card and you vote and you read the outcome. And I suppose that might sound repetitive, but no, I guess it's kind of like something like Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, where you're just always in the story, but actually it's a competitive game and you really have like rival factions and you're going against each other, and there's a bit of betrayal and alliances. And oh man, it just makes me think of Game of Thrones so much. I would love to see a Game of Thrones version of it.
That's awesome. Yeah, I know.
Have you played it?
I haven't played it, but I know Tom came in and was raving about the game, so he really enjoyed it. But I have not had a chance to play it. And it's one of those like legacy games that you have to play a whole lot, right? Basically.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Of course. And I don't know how far I'll get through before it kind of gets like held on the shelf, kind of like my Risk Legacy game.
Right.
But at least it's kind of like the games are short. And one of the things that I found a bit frustrating with Pandemic Legacy is that even though it's really cool to open up a box each time, it's like every time there was like a new kind of extra thing you had to remember with the setup and like a new rule that you had to remind yourself with.
Right.
And I'm sure King's Dilemma adds some stuff in that I haven't seen yet, but so far it's kind of just so easy to go back into. And because the game, you could probably play a game in like 45 minutes. So you could really just like bang out like 3 or 4 in one night if you're really into it. And you could probably get through the campaign in, I don't know, like 4 or 5 sessions and it and be done. So that kind of legacy game appeals to me. The ones that are just kind of overwrought with components and rules and things like that, it's just, I'm going to struggle to find the group. And the other cool thing with King's Dilemma is you can jump in and out, although I guess it's just going to not be as great for the people that jump out. But they give you like 10 or 12 factions, and you can only ever play with 5. But if somebody's not there one week, instead of them, you could like replace them with another friend, but they could just play as a new faction. I just think that's kind of cool.
Yeah, we just finished Clank Legacy the other day, and I feel like that's a game that you'd probably really like because
I think so.
Basically, I don't know if you know of Acquisitions Incorporated or Penny Arcade's like D&D stuff.
I do, yeah. I know a little bit, yeah.
They basically made Clank into that world. It's basically like fantasy D&D, but they added tons and tons and tons of story. So if you like Near and Far, where you're opening up the storybook and like making choices and things like that, this is like Clank with story thrown into it. And of course, choices you do, of course, it's legacy style, and you're trying to complete missions and stuff like that. And if you like Press Your Luck, I really enjoyed it. I'm pretty sure that's my favorite legacy game I've played so far. But those legacy games, man, it's just so hard. I stopped playing D&D because I can play board games with anybody, you know. D&D, you have to get the same people back over and over again. Well, Legacy puts you back in that like thing where you have to have the same people back over and over again.
Yeah, but, exactly. So with Clank Legacy, I love Clank, so I think I probably will like it. But when you said about the storybook, is there actually a book then?
Oh yeah, there's definitely a book, and I mean it's very much like Near and Far. Have you played Near and Far?
Yeah. So you're turning to it during the game rather than like between scenarios.
Yeah. Well, you'll read a passage at the beginning, and it sets stuff up, and then like in the scenario, you'll go to these different spots on the board, and it'll be like, oh, now you read from this, and you're kind of racing there because it's like Clank. You're racing down to get the treasures. In this game, you're racing down to get the treasures, but you're also racing to all these different story spots. And you do the story spots, and majority of the time, they turn out pretty good for you, but you're never quite sure what's going to happen when you step on them. But you want to get there first, pretty much. It's like, I want to do this story thing. I want to do that story thing. And it was really interesting and really well done. Nice. Jerry from PAX and like Penny Arcade ended up writing like all of the stories in this thing, and you can definitely tell like it's really cool and really well written, and it's got like comedic things in it too, so I think you might enjoy that. So
I'm really looking forward to it now. I didn't quite realize. I think I'd watched a bit of one of your videos about it, but I was kind of trying to avoid too much of the spoilers, and
it's Clank with story. That's all you need to know, basically.
I knew that it added some story, but I didn't realize it was kind of like on a book level. I thought it would just be like some cards, you know, like you would just read a card at the start of the game and you'd read a card at the end of the game. But the fact that it's within the game, that sounds really interesting. And just because I love Clank, so I think that's probably going to click for me. But yeah, I am a bit scared about doing another Legacy game.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's around like 10 games long, so and I mean it's interesting. I mean, I enjoy Clank enough, and I enjoy the whole deck building, press your luck aspect of it, that when I played Pandemic Legacy, after a while I like Pandemic, but I don't know that I like Pandemic 15 games worth of Pandemic. And I mean they add things on, but with Clank I was just like, yeah, let's do this. Like, I mean, I really enjoyed how everything fell together, and there's always things to explore in that game. Like when you play Pandemic, sometimes you're playing like the same month over again or different things, and you're not really doing anything new. Like in this one, every single game there's new things, like every single game, and that's one of the things that I loved about it. I think we're gonna be doing Tom and Sam are gonna be doing like the Miami Dice video of like the final thoughts. But it might be too spoiler for you, so you might not want to watch it. But
yeah.
But I really enjoyed it, and I know the other guys did too. So it should be fun. I know the price point's pretty high though, so get Renegade on the phone. No, I'm just kidding. You're like, I'll write a song about it. It's okay.
Yeah, I was just thinking about kind of story games. I love the idea of what you just described, which is like Clank with a storybook. And I kind of just wish that it wasn't Legacy. I mean, I'm sure the Legacy thing adds stuff, but it's just... I'm still kind of waiting for my favorite game, I think. Well, I suppose Dead of Winter does it a little bit, but a game that just gives you like a self-contained experience. You play it in like an hour or 2 hours, and it's got a load of story in, but it finishes, you know, and like, and you don't. Robinson Crusoe is a great example, but it doesn't. I guess Robinson Crusoe doesn't have like a big book, although the new expansion does. But like, it's like This War of Mine is a game that I really love, and it's kind of like that, except it's still basically a campaign because it takes about 10 or 12 hours to actually play a whole game. So that doesn't really work. I think the legacy thing is kind of how you sell it. Is like the name you put on the box, and people are just going to buy it. But actually, like, it does frustrate so many people, and I feel like if you just brought the story aspect, and you could still turn it into a campaign, sure, if you could like give rules for that or something, then great, but it would just be so cool if you could just play it solo. And I think that's, you know, that was what was quite cool about Near and Far, is that you can still kind of just do that, single games, but still get the story that you want.
Yeah, I would love to see more games like that, because, I mean, I love stuff like Tales of the Arabian Nights, even though it's ridiculously silly, you know, and it's kind of pointless whatever you're doing. You're just basically just going around just seeing what happens to you for the most part. You don't have real agency to make super good choices in that game. But I love any of those games that have like story in them, and it would be cool to see a designer come up with a way to make a game that, like you're saying, like has short playtime, like loads of story. I'm sure it'd be hard to do, because I guess really, if you've seen certain stories, like it would be hard to like not know how it plays out.
Right. Yeah, I imagine it's really hard to do. And in fact, like there, you know, the few times that I occasionally kind of flirt with the idea of designing a game, I just kind of I would think about story games, because that's kind of where my mind goes, and because those are the games that I love. And so often I just kind of come away and I'm like, that there's no way of kind of doing this easily, or it kind of breaks down in some way or other. And I think ultimately, because the way stories work, and, you know, I'm basically sort of telling myself right now why that idea can't work. And the reason Clank Legacy works, or King's Dilemma works, is because, you've got the little stories, but you've also got like the overarching thing that goes across the whole campaign. And that's really, there's just probably not another good way to do that and have something so impactful. Because really, that's like how a TV series works, right? And so I'd love to see it happen. And
the actual board game, you've got enough characters, you can just all asymmetrical powers, like. Okay, that's a great idea. I think I need. That's kind of like the sort of thing that I need to get big enough so that one day somebody just is like, look, let's make that game together, you know, rather than me trying to. What would Timmy's power be?
And I'll take it to like a publisher, and then they'll just be like, no. But no, I didn't. I think first of all, if I'm going to make any game, it's got to be a party game, right?
Yeah, maybe. As long as it has asymmetrical actual character powers. No, I'm just kidding. We need the hipster guy. We need everybody.
Okay. Yeah, that works. Yeah, the only character that's ever come alive in a game is that you can get a promo for Champions of Midgard with the Viking character that I played in my Champions of Midgard review.
That's awesome.
He's called Björn Hammerblow, and he, like, in the artwork, he's carrying like a normal hammer, like that you would hammer in nails with, and even the power, like the character power, has like a little reference to like one of the jokes that I made in the video. So that's really awesome. I'd love to see more of that.
Super meta. That's awesome.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But it's still, I guess it still works as like a good character, even if you don't. Mm-hmm. And the artwork still kind of matches up. So you don't have to be like, it doesn't have to take you out of your Viking theme.
There you go. Maybe he's just a shipbuilder. He's got to use a regular hammer instead of Thor's hammer.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we're getting close to an hour here, and I normally try to keep them around that mark. I know you said you've got awesome videos coming up, but if there's anything else you'd like to tell people where they can find you, tell people what you've got going on, tell people things to get them excited about Actual.
Oh, I'm going to get my little thing. So, because some people don't know how to spell Actualol, because it's a silly word. So that is how you spell Actualol. I hope you can see that. Maybe my camera went out of focus then. And it is, I've got loads of videos, but I would recommend some because out of 4 years, some are a lot better than others. So I'd really recommend my top 10 games for newbies, which is all like gateway games, and it's got like my characters in. So I tend to do a lot of videos where I play like my little brother Timmy, my mum, and like my fake stepdad Barry. And so I've got like Christmas videos, so my top 10 games to play at Christmas, my top 10 Christmas gifts, my top 10 games to play on the couch. And also last year I did like cheap Christmas gifts. It wasn't 10, it was like more than 10, like 15 or something. And I had like all my characters in that video.
That's awesome.
So those are some of my best ones. I've got a song about Pandemic Legacy, and then I've also got like my big musical number song, which is called Board Games Are Not Just for Geeks Anymore. So those are good places to get started. I could keep going, but like
I really like your video too about Monopoly being like, hey, this is
Yeah, so I've got a video on why you should never play Monopoly again. So that one and my top 10 games for newbies, like both of those I feel like are videos that I made for board gamers to share with their friends so that they can kind of bring them over. And that's something that I really want to do. Maybe in like the new year, I'm going to keep working on videos that kind of can help show the rest of the world like why board games are so awesome and help like introduce more people to the hobby.
Nice. Well, everybody make sure to check out John on Actual, on YouTube, Twitter, TikTok. You know, he has all that stuff. Snapchat.
No, Instagram. I'm on Instagram, but not TikTok or Snapchat. Maybe
I know.
one day.
I'm just kidding around.
When older people are allowed on there, right? I think that's when we're going.
I think Portal Games tried to do Snapchat for a while, and we're like,
oh wow,
we're like Ignacy. That's not what Snapchat's for. Like, you're gonna post a picture of your board game, it's gonna be gone in 10 seconds. Like, what's going on, man? But good stuff.
Well, good effort.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show. It's been a blast.
Thank you so much for having me, Roy. My Dice Tower debut. But yeah, it was really fun, like chatting and like if you ever doing some other kind of podcast thing, then I'd love to come on. But hello to everyone watching the Dice Tower. I am one of you most of the time. And in fact, like most evenings, like I get my tablet out and like I watch like a Dice Tower top 10 or whatever. So like thanks for watching, and now you can come and watch Actualol as well.
Sweet. All right, well, see you guys next time. Bye.
All right, see ya. Bye.
Thanks so much for watching another Dice Tower video. If you enjoy our videos, subscribe to the channel for more fun, comprehensive board game coverage. Also, consider joining us at one of our events. Come to Dice Tower Retreat, a small, intimate gathering where gaming is king. Join us for Dice Tower Cruise, the largest board game cruise. Attend Dice Tower West in Las Vegas for gaming fun on the West Coast, or Dice Tower East in Orlando in sunny Florida. Dice Tower Conventions, the friendliest gaming conventions on Earth. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.